708 on CJAD. Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with my co-host, Josh Miller of Fuller Landau. Josh, Happy New Year. Nice to see you back.
Happy 2013. Hello, and great to be back.
And so back Monday nights at 7 here on CJAD, and we kick off the new year with a man who spent some time in a very warm place, came back with a great idea and a really great product. Alain Boucher is here from A.R.B. Teak. Welcome, Alain.
Thank you.
And you know, Dan, if I was living in Bali for 2 years, especially considering 5 years, 5 years. If I was living in Bali for 5 years, especially considering we're minus 25 this week, there's got to be a reason and a really good one to come back. Certainly the entrepreneurial spirit is definitely going to show in this. So, Alain, we invite you to kind of just tell the listener at the moment, what is A.R.B. today? What product do you provide today?
Well, A.R.B. is a company which specializes in high-end teak products, more specifically furniture, but we've moved into teak planks, teak wood, teak shower benches, and all kinds of different products that would basically cater to different industries. The garden industry, the bath industry, and so forth.
Do you wholesale? Do you retail? Is a little bit of both?
Yeah, well, we started with the retail business. We went into retail because we believed that retail brought some money immediately. The wholesale business was really our long-term goal, but the wholesale business takes a long time to build. So we figured we'd focus on retail, start getting some money coming in, and then start developing the wholesale business.
Now, how did you get started in this business? Have you been involved in furniture and importing for your entire life, or is this kind of out of the blue? Where did this start?
Well, actually, I come from a totally different world. I used to automate production lines. So I come from the IT world, in the heydays of the IT world, when it was the good times. And then by the time I reached 40 years old, I guess I had a little burnout and I wanted a change of life. I grabbed my family, my kids, and we moved to Indonesia, so to Bali more specifically.
And why Bali?
We just wanted an escape. At that time, I had a friend who was building a hotel, and he asked me to come down to help him build a hotel.
And where did Teak come from? I mean, I guess this is where you're sourcing your goods, but how did you kind of connect with this material that said, hey, you know what? There's my future.
Well, Indonesia is known for its teak, so there's really teak all over the place. And Bali was an extremely warm place to live at. You know, now that I'm saying this today with the cold today, I wish I was there. But basically, I didn't want to really spend the rest of my life in Bali. So we wanted to come back, but we didn't really want to get into the corporate world. So we figured we'd start, importing a container and see where it goes from there.
I actually had to Google what teak was. I didn't know what it was. Can you tell us a bit about this product and where it comes from?
Yeah, teak is an exotic wood. People think it's a hardwood. It's actually a very dense wood, and what gives it its density is the actual oil content within the teak. This oil content allows the teak to be waterproof, if I can use that term, and basically gives it longevity. So the teak combined with its oil embedded in the teak, which is it's naturally in the teak, what allows it to last a long time.
Did you know there was going to be a demand for it here? Was there already a market for it in Canada when you were looking?
Yeah, there's been a market for teak. Teak actually got a bad word over the years. There's different kinds of teak or different grades of teak. So the teak that's closer to the actual bark is called the sapwood, and that's a young teak that doesn't have the oil content that the middle piece of the tree would have. So the market's been burned, if I can use the term, over the years from other parties that brought in a C grade type of teak and basically sold it as a grade A. So a lot of people got misconception of what teak was, and we tried to bring the quality of teak back and focusing solely on grade A type of teak.
Did you have any knowledge of this product before you got into it? You were in engineering, you were in IT. What the heck did you know about wood, especially teak?
Well, I'm also a big sailor, so I knew a bit about teak and its longevity and the way it resists to water. But I didn't really know much more about teak at that specific time, no.
And business, you obviously got tired of working for somebody else, so you went to Bali. Well, you did work for your friend. Why the getting into your own business?
Well, it was kind of, if I can almost use the term, it was kind of a desperate decision. We want to come back to Quebec. We really didn't want to get back into the corporate world per se. So we figured we would try to bring something in and make something out of it. So it was kind of like a forced situation in a way, so I can support my family. And in the end, it turned into a great business. So I'm quite happy I did that.
Now, you have to have a first sale. I mean, did you go out on a limb, buy some teak and say, you know what, build it, they will come? Or did you really, what came first, the customer, the product? How did you get that first sale?
Well, that's a good question. We went on a limb. We had no idea if it was going to sell or not. We just went along and met some suppliers, and we said, okay, we'll take a bit of this, a bit of that, and we'll put it in a container, and we'll bring it to Canada, and we'll see where it goes from there. So, yeah, we kind of took a shot in the dark, and in order to get that first sale, we obviously focused on our immediate network of friends, and that's how the business started. Now, of course, the network once you've gone by your network of friends, that's when the real business concept comes into play, and you got to figure out how to expand that into different markets or different areas.
And Dan, that's what's going to bring us to planning and talking about planning, business projections, cash flow, and all that fun stuff that when you're starting out a business, you got to think a little bit ahead sometimes.
Our guest is Alain Boucher of A.R.B. Teak on Today's Entrepreneur. 7:18 on Today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller, and our guest this evening, Alain Boucher of A.R.B. Teak. And Josh, we're talking about Alain's story, living in Bali for many years, getting the idea to import this product to Canada. And here we are back in the freezing cold. And Alain would not have it any other way.
And, you know, we were talking about, you know, it's shooting from the hip versus planning ahead. You know, targeting where you want to go versus, you know, trying to hit a wide array and say, where is it going to land? So, Alain, I'm going to turn to you and say, you know, did you have a plan going out? Did you put some stuff to paper? Was it a little more random? Was it a little more targeted? Tell us a little bit about those beginning steps to get really something on the ground.
Well, the first container was actually, if I can use the term, a shot in the dark. We just went on a whim, took the products we thought we would sell, and went that way.
These were finished products.
Finished product, yes. Once we got the container in Canada and we start selling them, well, that's when we start to get, if we can use the term, historical data. So, of course, once you see what you're selling, then you can start analyzing it a bit. And considering I got a degree in statistical math, that's when the ratios came out and started looking at, you know, the money we're making on certain items and the size of the items and the place that the place it took in the container and so forth. So, yeah, we had to focus on what sells. So obviously, once we saw the products going and the ones that sold the fastest, we started focusing on those and made derivatives of those products.
Did you have a first breakout customer? Was it a bunch of little guys? Was it one big one? How did you really get those first dollars in?
Well, we did get a big break initially, and I was through a deal with Canadian Tire. So we had a few containers going to Canadian Tire in Ontario, and that basically opened up our Burlington store on the QEW in Ontario.
Now, today you work with big box and smaller mom and pop stores from your wholesale side?
Yeah, on the wholesale, we're focusing mostly on boutique, high-end boutique type of shops. The big box, we're staying away. Well, we're not staying away, but we're only making deals when we make the rules, is really what we're focusing on.
Are you suggesting that some of the big box guys dictate the rules?
Well, when you're a small business, one wrong deal or a big deal, one wrong one could basically put you under fairly quickly. So these guys, they come out with all kinds of rules and regulations, and if you sign the dotted line on those, sometimes they can make you go bankrupt fairly quickly.
And sometimes you learn the lesson the hard way.
Yes, you do, and always remember to fight back if you need to.
It's actually worth it.
Yes, absolutely. And just because the rules are on paper and you've signed, don't hesitate to pick up the phone and fight a bit and see what you can get out of it.
Now, with with the, I guess you're starting your own business. You don't have the full experience in setting credit terms with your customers or any of the processes. Did you learn that along the way? Did you have a little bit of background in dealing with customers and suppliers for that?
Yeah, I've been in sales all my life, so with respect to dealing with customers and corporate customers, that was fairly easy. The main issue in starting up the business were really cash flow issues. Basically investing your personal money into your business and finding that money is one of the major issues probably most small companies have these days.
Now, so you tried to, or you're dealing with a bank at the beginning. How was that experience?
The banks are not your friends, if I can use the term. You usually go for private funding, immediate family mostly. And then once you start to get the numbers and starting to see a bit of profit on your bottom lines, you can start approaching the banks. But the small banks, the banks with the small businesses are basically focused on their ratios. They basically analyze your financials and come out with basically if they can give you some money or not. But when you're a small business and you're not making that much money, they're usually very difficult to work with.
And I think what Alain's saying, Dan, is so true. When you're going to talk to a bank, you got to be armed. You got to be armed with your process, with your people, with whatever skills you have, your marketing, your product. Yeah, I mean, really a full business plan. But if you listen to what Alain is saying, you know what you got to be armed with? You got to be armed with profit. Mm-hmm. Because banks aren't necessarily funding losses. They're funding good stories, but good stories that they know they can make some money with. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about cash flow and even more importantly, inventory management as you go and grow and bring products from overseas.
Alain Boucher is our guest of A.R.B. Teak on Today's Entrepreneur, 723. 725 on Today's Entrepreneur. Our guest is Alain Boucher of A.R.B. Teak, and we're talking about doing business with teak products in Indonesia. And Alain, how is doing business in a country that in recent years has been unstable sometimes politically?
Well, Indonesia is a special place, a beautiful country, I might add. However, there is a big language barrier, which is one thing we have to get over with. The other aspect is to find a good Indonesian businessman that actually believed in a long-term relationship with a potential client. That's been a very difficult step for us to find someone reliable that gives you a steady quality product all the time. It's something very difficult to achieve, especially when you're talking in a hardwood, solid type of product. So we've gone from really bad suppliers to good suppliers and everything in between. We've had suppliers that gave us good wood but bad hardware, suppliers that gave us good hardware, bad wood, and
How do you vet them out? I mean, do you test them with a little bit? A small order at a time? Is it really word of mouth? And especially when you're first starting out with getting to know the product yourself.
Yeah, the testing is again a difficult process out there because usually they always give you a beautiful product when you ask them a prototype or a test. It always comes out beautiful. It's when you get into the volumes that you run into problems. So that gets into the quality control and the fact that we're not there anymore to check the product. That's another issue that we need to take care of. So making sure someone's over there to check the product.
That was my next question. Do you go there often now?
Well, we're there once a year, if not twice a year, but we have people over there doing the quality check for us now. Yeah.
It's important to have people on the ground.
Especially out in Indonesia. You need your allies, people on your side that are going to kind of take care of you. So, you have to keep people on the payroll over there somehow.
Is it all, I mean, because of the specialized product and the high-end product, is Indonesia the place? Have you done business elsewhere in the world, or is this really the location for your product?
Well, with respect to teak, to me, Indonesia is the place and really the only place for the simple reason that because of the Dutch colonies 300 years ago, that's when the plantations were actually created. So the Dutch used to build their ships out of Indonesia, so the plantations are 300 years old. So you're going to get a 30-year-old plus tree when they cut it down.
So quality is an important aspect for you. Is that something that you started from day one? You needed the highest quality? Is that something you kind of learned over the years that said, you know what, if I want to differentiate myself, I've got to be at this level?
Yeah, we went to all different grades at the beginning to cater to the Canadian Tires and the Walmarts and those other kind of brands. However, with the recession, with what was happening in China, and people just got fed up of a bad quality product. So we decided to take the route of a high quality product and to stick in that vertical. It's been difficult because obviously high quality, high price, and that's the toughest thing we've had to conquer with our customers, is to convince them that paying a bit more will make it worth your while.
It's really about educating your customer. It's saying, this is what you're getting. This is the bang for the buck that you're getting.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've had to emphasize more and more throughout the years to ensure that they understand the product?
The whole teak industry has been undereducated, and I think the word educated is a good one. We have to educate practically every customer that comes into the store and tell them why teak versus metal versus plastic for the outdoor. Why is teak going to give you longevity? Why is teak going to last you a lifetime? And there's reasons for that, and these are points that we need to educate people, and that's why we believe that with respect to garden furniture, only a teak specialist can actually sell teak garden furniture.
It's that specialized. And you find, Dan, we hear companies that have come on that have a lot of unique products, a lot of unique services, and it takes that extra effort, that extra energy to become successful, is to educate your ultimate customer base, is say, hey, you know what? You don't know about this, but this is the next best thing since sliced bread. And not everybody recognizes that. They think, you know what, I'll throw it out there and everybody will know. You'll go online and people will figure it out. But the energy and effort and recognition that entrepreneurs have to make sure their customers know that they're getting the right product is a huge effort. And I think that's a very interesting part of the story.
So maybe we'll talk marketing on the other side. How exactly do you educate the consumer and get them to appreciate a product that they may not have heard of, which I didn't hear of it. So we'll talk about that with Alain Boucher of A.R.B. Teak. 7:34, welcome back to Today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller, and our guest this evening is Alain Boucher of A.R.B. Teak. And Josh and I lived in Bali for not Bali.
Bali.
It was Bali, yeah. Bali.
We're jealous. We're just jealous.
We're very jealous. The cold is getting to my brain, and I wish I could go off to Bali right now. But Alain came back with a product idea, and that is, of course, teak furniture. Marketing the furniture is the next challenge, right? To sort of convince people that it's worth the money, to educate them as to what it is. I didn't know what it was. I had to Google it. Your furniture is beautiful, by the way, Alain. How do you make that communication to the consumers to help them discover something they didn't know anything about?
Well, that's a good question. Initially, it was very difficult to actually find the right customer to get into your store. We obviously focused on the garden area initially, and through springtime started the traditional advertising, such as newspapers, magazines, and so forth, even radio. But we concluded that all those old traditional ways of doing marketing wasn't really paying off for us. Or not only that, we had a very difficult time in quantifying the actual value of doing it. So we've really moved into the IT side of things, and sometimes I tell a lot of people we're an IT company selling teak. Really, is what we are, and we're experts in Google. We have about 6 or 7 different websites up and running right now. We're famous in our AdWords as well, and we're really trying to conquer the internet with our product, and that's how we're trying to get the most of our marketing leads.
Is that really? I mean, you're using your IT background to try and push this forward. Is this all you? Did you bring in outside experts as well?
Initially, we did it all internally. My wife and I. We did our websites. We started doing our own Google AdWord campaigns through the help of friends that had some knowledge in it. But we knew right from the beginning that we needed a catalog, and to physically print a catalog was very expensive. So we went the website route, and that's really our catalog. We're one of the only companies on A.R.B.Teak.com that actually has the pricing of our products there, contrary to most other players in this industry. So we're upfront with our pricing, and we do a lot of email communications and so forth.
Now, you talked about this very important word earlier that not everybody, I guess, adheres to when you're talking marketing. You're called measurement, measuring your marketing efforts. Is that something that you really try and cling to? And if something's not working, you tweak it, you move it, you whatever you have to do to try and go in a slightly different direction.
Constantly, we're constantly focusing our marketing dollars in areas that are going to pay back, and in areas where we can actually quantify the payback. So we focus on email campaigns and opt-in campaigns, and how many people actually come back and talk to us about the campaign. We track people that come in and find out where they found us from, and so forth. To us, those valuable information, extremely valuable information that we're constantly refeeding the machine.
Now, let's stick on the IT topic. You have an IT background. What else has technology helped you with in running your business?
Well, the whole paradigm shift of the traditional marketing into the digital marketing world is one. We're fully cloud-based with respect to our websites and our POS system and our inventory system. This allows us to basically handle orders from anywhere in the world, which was key to the success of our business. We didn't know if we were going to live in Bali, if we were going to live in Montreal. However, no matter where we were, we can actually run the business from anywhere.
Not customers anywhere in the world. With you being anywhere in the world, you can run the business.
Exactly. So our customers were focusing Quebec and Ontario. We're starting to move into the U.S. But in terms of running the business, we can pack up our office and move to the other side of the planet tomorrow, and nobody would see the difference.
And when you're talking about these type of management information systems, I mean, access to information is huge. Reacting at a moment's notice, being proactive. I mean, you keep your finger on the pulse effectively wherever you are.
Constantly, it's the key. We talked about recessions. We talked about different things that have happened in the past. If you don't have your finger on the pulse, as soon as something hits you sideways, it can deviate your path and can literally put you bankrupt fairly quickly.
Now, some entrepreneurs, I mean, I've heard this many times, where they're just not comfortable with the IT world. They're not comfortable in using the computer. But is it difficult to set up? I mean, was it easy for you to set up this management information system where you really could monitor it from anywhere?
The tools are out there, and it's actually taking the time to set them up is what you need to do. As far as I'm concerned, it's a must for all businesses today. You don't have to be in retail or wholesale or manufacturing or engineering. I think all businesses need to have a serious look at the IT side of marketing. Absolutely.
That's interesting, because you said you're primarily an IT business over anything else. I mean, how do entrepreneurs sort of adapt to the fact that IT and a good website becomes really an essential part of any business?
Well, by keeping an open mind, really. I think any entrepreneur, the general aspect of an entrepreneur is someone that has an open mind, that takes feedback from all kinds of people. And I think it's if you as an entrepreneur don't have that knowledge, you should go out there and find someone that does, and look into it, at least look into it, because I feel it's a key aspect of a successful business today.
And taking a look at your website, something that struck me is that it's clean. There's not a lot of clutter there, and it's also very honest. You mentioned the pricing. Do you list all your prices all the time, or does it really depend on the product?
We're trying to tell people that two things is that's the price for one, and two, it's a quality product, and there's no surprises. So if the customer sees the price, knows what to expect when they come into our store, so there's no more surprises. And generally, when someone comes into the store, they've seen our product, they've selected the product, and they're ready to go.
The other thing that strikes me, Dan, when you're looking on the website, there's quite a number of different products, quite a lot of SKUs. Inventory management. How did you deal with inventory management over the growth years and today?
Well, it's inventory management was very difficult in this business, for the simple reason it takes about 4 months to get the product here. So from the minute you've ordered it to the minute it arrives in Canada, it's anywhere between 4 to 6 months. So again, another shot in the dark. We have to build our inventory before the season even starts. So it's been very difficult to guesstimate, what we're potentially going to sell. The other thing that we wanted to achieve is to be the supplier of teak in Canada. So we want to make sure we had an inventory, but not only an inventory, but a wide variety of different products in teak. So the concept in our store is, you pick your table, you pick your chairs, and you build the set the way you want it, contrary to most places where you come in and this is the chair, this is the set, and that's what you get for that price.
So you sit with a lot of inventory. What happens when a recession hits?
Well, we did this while there was a recession, so we're hoping there's not going to be another one.
Not for some time now.
Yeah, hopefully. Let's hope it won't. But it's actually worked because the product doesn't rot and it's got a long shelf life. And the beauty about it is it doesn't really change style on a year-to-year basis. So we're lucky for that. And what we don't sell one year, we just keep it and we'll sell it the next year. We tend to do that very well.
Now, we're really coming close to the end, and I have so many questions, but I know that you have locations in both Ontario and Quebec. And one question I'm actually dying to ask is the ease of doing business in Ontario versus Quebec. What works kind of better there versus here and vice versa?
Well, la langue française is always an additional issue that we need to deal with in Quebec. So obviously your website in Ontario will work in the rest of Canada and also will work in the U.S. However, you have to cater to the Quebec market as well. So we actually developed a French website as well for the Quebec market. The issue of two locations is very difficult. Difficult on me, difficult on my wife, difficult on my kids. We need to be in both places at the same time. Obviously, when the boss is not there, HR issues come into play. We have a hard time with our showrooms in Ontario because there's really nobody that really cares that's there to run them. So that's the difficult part of it. But Montreal's obviously going really well because we're putting more time and effort in the Montreal location.
And physical presence of any entrepreneur is huge. People underestimate the owner's presence in a business, not just from keeping your eye out for what's going right and what's going wrong, but just the inspirational side, the motivation side, the vision side that everybody or many people underestimate. And you raise human resources, and that's an important issue that's coming up.
So we'll talk about HR issues, and of course, Alain Boucher is here from A.R.B. Teak. Today's Entrepreneur on CJAD. Coming up to 7:49 on Today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people, Dan Delmar and Fuller Landau's Josh Miller. Our guests this evening, we have from A.R.B. Teak, Alain Boucher, and we bring in Micheline Maillet as well, HR specialist with Fuller Landau, and we're going to talk about, Josh, some New Year's resolutions when it comes to human resources.
Everybody, wants to lose weight or stop smoking or cut down their drinking. I don't know why. But certainly there's human resource aspect to every business. And I think, we'll turn to Micheline and say, what do you think the top New Year's HR resolution would be for many businesses that you encounter?
I think it should be timely feedback I shall give. I find one of the biggest problems in companies, all from an HR perspective, is that they tend to not give feedback, at least on a timely basis, to their staff, which is unfortunate. And I'm talking good feedback, bad feedback, the good and the bad.
Does it need to be formal? Is it informal? Do both work? Should you have a certain timing for one versus another? Is there a method? Is there a right way, a wrong way?
I'd say both informal and formal are fine, but you do need to have some formal in there. Like I strongly believe, obviously, I work in HR, so I strongly believe in evaluating performance throughout the year. But I really think that, to keep it simple, you can give informal feedback to an employee. The only time you have to be really careful is when you're, giving negative feedback. Sometimes you want to do this in a formal way that's documented, because if ever it could lead to a disciplinary measures or termination of employment later, then you want to make sure you have it written down in the file. Are
you supposed to dance around the topic? Are you supposed to kind of have the person that you're talking to, their psyche in mind, and saying, I better approach it this way versus that way. I can be direct with this person, but I better dance around the topic with this person. Do you really have to tailor how you give your feedback?
I mean, I think there's some, they call it emotional intelligence that's involved, in knowing who your audience is and depending on what the issue is and that type of thing. I mean, there's one thing, if you have an employee who's late every morning because his wife's in the hospital, then you're not going to approach it the same way as in other situations, which are, which you might want to deal with a little bit heavy-handed.
Alain, are you've been running your business for a while. You have a few staff. I'm sure there's some feedback you give along the way. Could be informal throughout the year. Is that something that you attach yourself to? Would that be a good resolution for you to take on this 2013?
Well, one of my resolutions this year is to have a very clear job description when I hire someone, have a very clear reporting mechanisms for this person to report, and most of all, if there is an HR issue with a given staff, to fix it right away, like to not let it sit. If there's a staff that's unhappy with anything, solve it right away and don't let it stand for days or weeks or so forth, because that's when the morale in the company can go down.
Mm. You raise an interesting point about job descriptions. And Micheline, when we're talking about a more, say, formal evaluation, do you link the job description to the evaluation directly?
Usually I do, but it depends so much on the type of company too, and the philosophy of the company and so on. I do think it's important to have a clear definition of not only what people do, but what the expectations are for them during the year. One of the reasons I say feedback is so important is a lot of companies tend to have the no news is good news philosophy, even for their strong performers, and just assume that if I'm not saying anything, it's because they're doing a good job and they should know that. But people want to know that they're doing a good job, or if they're not being told, sometimes they're not sure, and it's motivating also to get that pat on the back every once in a while.
And I think there's probably the different generations have different expectations of certain feedback as well.
I think different generations, people talk a lot about the new generation. I think they do tend to request feedback more openly than other generations have in the past, but I don't think it's that it wouldn't have been appreciated by past generations.
And what about performance reviews? Is it good for all companies, or just looking at the medium and large size businesses?
Even smaller companies can evaluate performance. Again, it doesn't have to be a 10-page long form. It could be sitting down with people once a year to kind of go over their job description, what's the expectation for the next year, how have they been doing, and so on. It doesn't have to be something really long and arduous. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And when we come back, Josh, more about HR and also Alain Boucher's one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur. 7:55 on today's entrepreneur. Our guests, Alain Boucher of A.R.B. Teak and Micheline Maillet, HR specialist at Fuller Landau, and talking some HR issues, Josh.
And we were touching upon generations and feedback. Now, Micheline, do you see differences in the various generations and how much feedback they want? Is silence a good thing for some generations, whereas maybe the younger generations might say, you know what, I need to hear it all the time. I want transparency. I want to know exactly where I stand at almost every single moment. What do you see as far as the different generations and feedback?
Yeah, I'd say definitely the new generation, the big difference is that they demand the feedback. Like, they want to have it on a regular basis. And, before you asked me whether companies should be doing a formal review at least once a year, I said yes. In an ideal situation, they should be getting feedback throughout the year. Now, I usually recommend that companies do set a formal process, because what tends to happen is employees only get their feedback that one time a year. So at least they get it once and not never. But I think that's part of the new culture, is to want to get feedback often, and it's more useful to get feedback when it happens than to wait till next October to find out that you did something good or bad in April. So
if you want to rectify it right away, absolutely.
Exactly. So I think giving timely feedback is a good practice for all companies. Now, realistically, it's more difficult sometimes to do it that way. There is software companies can purchase also, which they can even track all the feedback online and stuff like that on a regular basis, which can help companies do that. Yeah.
And coming back to the being direct or dancing around the topic, what works, or is it really case by case?
I think everybody has their own style when it comes to it. Personally, my style is to be more direct about it. I find when you try to beat around the bush, it's not taken as seriously as when you kind of give it up front. I'm not saying you have to be mean in how you do it, always respectful and explain what it is that you mean. But I find the less that you get to the point, the less people will get the point.
Do you ever have, just as one last question, entrepreneurs that want to try and get feedback from their human resources, from their employees and their team?
Definitely. One thing I see a lot is, there'll be issues in the company. It could be turnover or, mainly turnover, I'd say, is one of the bigger problems. Maybe they can sense that there's some unhappiness and they'll say, I don't understand. I went to ask people, are you happy? And they said yes. But it's not always easy to tell the owner of the company or your boss if you're not happy. So I think it's always useful to have some anonymous ways to get feedback. If you don't have an HR person who's maybe a bit more impartial, it could be even something as simple as a suggestion box, or do an employee survey a couple of times a year, little surveys, something like that, to have an outlet for comments.
Certainly a lot of challenges and many areas that entrepreneurs sometimes have to tread lightly and sometimes just got to hit the nail right on. And as we look to Alain Boucher in the final moments, I turn to Alain and I say, what would be the one piece of advice you would give to today's entrepreneur?
Well, I guess the best advice I can tell anybody who's trying to do a startup is, if you believe in your product, you've got the right product at the right price, and you're at the right place, stick with it. Just believe in your product, keep pushing it, and give it time. Nothing happens quick, and you need a bit of luck in life, and all that combined with patience will probably make you succeed in the long run.
Excellent. And Dan, the one takeaway I'll get from this show and Alain's words of wisdom is keep your finger on the pulse. Whether it's an MIS system, whether it's manual, whatever it may be, wherever you are in the world, know what's going on in your business at all moments. Know where your sales are and your receivables and who you owe money to. Know the important things, because that's what's going to keep you on the right track from day to day and able to plan properly going forward.
Thanks very much, Josh. Thanks to Alain Boucher of A.R.B. Teak, and as well Micheline Maillet, HR specialist with Fuller Landau. Don't forget, you can reach Fuller Landau during business hours at 514-875-2865, or visit www.flmontreal.com. And Josh, we're back next Monday night. What's on the show next week?
Mummieslist.com.
Mummieslist.com.
This is a business just for the moms of the world.
All right. So more with Josh and everyone, and coming up after, in just a few moments, the 8 p.m. news on CJAD.